Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about my reading in the second quarter of the year, what I call the spring. So we will go through the TBR and check out which books I actually managed to read from that TBR. Now, the way my seasonal TBRs work is that I have basically three sources for them. One, I have a list of series I want to read this year. Then two, I have a list of new to me authors I want to read this year. And last but not least, I want to reach a zero TBR. So from my physical TBR, I take the amount of books that I would need to finish in that season to reach a zero TBR by the end of the year, which we're still quite a bit far away from that. And before we go through the individual books, and I'll let you know which ones I've read and I haven't read, I want to quickly talk about some stats with you. Now, we started off the quarter with April, and April is a readathon month for me. It is the magical readathon month, so I had to find books that fit in with the prompts. Because of that, I read quite a bit, but not necessarily my TBR books, because the prompts were kind of specific at times, and it just didn't fit so well. So from my TBR that I just described, I put 6 books on my April TBR. Out of these 6, I started 4 and I managed to finish 3 during April. And that means that from all of the books that I have read in April, 25% were actually on my TBR list. So that is a bit low. I usually like to reach about 50%, but as I said, it was readathon month. Then I also had quite a few books from the library. I had 6 books checked out from the library during the month, and from these 6 books I started and finished 4 because I needed them for prompts. So that means that 33% of my reading in April was from the library. So you could say at least I didn't acquire a lot of new books because I didn't read like books I had bought, but mainly books that were from the library. Still, I read some audiobooks that I bought new and stuff like that. But yeah, a little bit too much library reading and not enough TBR reading in April. Now moving on to May, which again was a readathon month. It was the Asian readathon, but I had quite a few books that fit, so I was very optimistic. Again, I put 6 books on my TBR for the month, and out of these 6, I started 5 and I finished 4 in May, and I also finished 1 that was still left over from the April TBR. So in May, watch out for that, of all the books that I've read, 83% were from the TBR. So I definitely made up for it in May. May was a so-so month. If you've watched my vlogs, you might know that sadly at the end of the month my grandpa passed away after a very long illness. So I did still have quite a good reading month because it happened at the end of May, but still it impacted things a little bit. But I am very happy that in May I really focused in on my physical TBR. I still had 2 books checked out from the library in May, but I did not read any of those, so 0% of my reading in May was library books. Kind of made up for April in that one. Now June is where you really see how those sad news impacted my reading. Again, I had 6 books on my TBR for the month, and I started and finished 1 of those. So June was not a good reading month for me. I decided to mood read a lot just because if you're struggling anyway, you don't want to like force yourself to read books you're not necessarily in the mood for. And so yeah, I finished the 1 book that was left over from the May TBR, and I read another 1. So in the end, because I didn't read a lot in general in June, 40% of the books that I read in June were from the TBR, which is still quite good. As I said, I like it to be 50% or more, but you know, sometimes you just have to go with the flow, and I'm absolutely fine with that. And again, I had 2 books checked out from the library in June and I did not read any of those, so 0% of my reading were from the library. Now that we got the stats out of the way, I want to walk through the books with you. And if you look at the shelf behind me, you're like, well, that's not actually so many books. Like, you must have read a lot of these. But looks are deceiving because I had quite a few books that I didn't own physically on my TBR for the series. So let's start out with those. So first of all, I wanted to read a duology, the Radiant Empire duology with She Who Became the Sun and He Who Drowned the World. I have read and loved both of these, so check. Then I also wanted to read the Life Ship Traders trilogy. I did those as audiobooks, and so far I have not read the last book. So I did read Ship of Magic and Mad Ship. Really enjoyed both of those, but Ship of Destiny is still open, and it's actually the next book I'm gonna start on audio today. So this will get read, but I did not quite manage it in time. And if you know anything about Life Ship Traders, these books are massive. The 3rd book is the shortest and it is just a little over 900 pages. So these audiobooks usually take me around 3 to 4 weeks to listen to, which might be a hint to why I did not finish that in 3 months. But I'm still very excited to finish the series and have another check on my list. And now let's get into my physical TBR. Let's talk about these books. So one book I had gotten as a gift, Die unerzählte Geschichte by Vera Weidenbach, a German non-fiction book about women in history, and I have read this. Then we're getting into the Asian Readathon month, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katu. This was also a gift and I have read this. The Tangerwood Palace by Marjorie Liu, also a gift, and I have read this. And then last but not least, for the books I read, we have Cursed Bunny by Bora Chang, also a gift, and I have read this. We have The 120 Days of Sodom by Marquis de Sade. This is a book that has been on my TBR for so long now, and I still haven't read it. It will probably stay on there for next year. Then we have Eighth Mountain by Paolo Cognetti, an Italian book, which I also got as a gift, and I have not read it. Maybe I still will during the summer, who knows. Then we have Love Saves the Day by Gwen Cooper. This was also a gift. I have not read this one yet. I still really want to read it this year because I started a reading vlog last year that I want to read this for, and I don't want to drag it out over like multiple years, to be honest. So I hope I get to this one still. Then a book I found for free. This is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. Still haven't read it, it's quite chunky and I'm in no rush with this one. We have Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. I do still really want to read this. I am kind of keeping it for a readathon, maybe this month or for Magical Readathon in September. We'll see, but I'm pretty sure I will sneak it in there somewhere this year. And then last but not least, we have The Woman's History of the Modern World by Rosalind Miles, also a gift. I get gifted most of my books, to be honest, because I'm so strict with buying that when I buy books, I read them immediately. They don't land on the TBRs. So yeah, most of these are gifts, funnily enough. But yeah, I have not read this yet, unfortunately. Also one that is very high on my list. Maybe for Nonfiction November? We'll see. So you can see that my spring was a little bit so similar to my winter. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of things happen that are not very pleasant. I wouldn't say that my year is going very well so far this year in general, so reading is also affected, but I still think that for what's going on, I'm doing quite well, and I hope you enjoyed seeing this. Definitely let me know what was your favorite book of spring that you've read, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!